Hey everyone, welcome to episode 133. We have Adam Feit here. So this is Dean, and Andrew usually does the intros, but we're kind of in like a weird situation just because we've kind of released episodes in weird orders just because of this whole COVID thing. We wanted to release the Mark Fisher, Chad Landers episode out earlier to kind of get everyone that's in gym ownership or in the fitness industry just that information because it was kind of pertinent to the situation going on. But Adam is from PN Nutrition. So he's one of those cool people that we kind of have been given and we've had the opportunity to interview, which is actually like awesome because we like to put forth people who are kind of doing things in the industry that may not have a huge Facebook following or huge Instagram following. Adam's a PhD candidate in sport and exercise psychology, and he's the assistant director of performance nutrition at Precision Nutrition. And long story short is we just get into talks about what COVID's doing kind of in the environment right now and what's the landscape look like. And we kind of just have a discussion about that kind of just snowballs into sports psychology, stress. And I think that you'll really like this one. Everyone from PN that we've had on has been quite amazing. So this was an awesome chat. So hopefully you enjoy it.
Shut up and sit down.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. So if you're a regular weekly listener, you may have picked up on the fact that this is actually the first one we recorded about 4 or 5 weeks as Dean was traveling in Costa Rica. The world has changed rather dramatically in the space of time even from when we recorded the last round of these. And now we're obviously in the middle of a lockdown. We're dealing with the coronavirus, COVID-19. And so listening right now, you're either in one of two places. One is you're listening to it as it's been released, which means you're right in the middle of it. Or maybe you're lucky enough to hear my voice 6 months down the road as you're going back through an archive of episodes and you're just kind of getting a glimpse of what we're dealing with right now as you remember it. So
sounds like a movie. Like, you know, when they're like, if you're seeing this video right now, we're all dead.
Totally.
And the world ended. Here's what you need to know.
I actually kind of do hope you're listening to this as the crisis has passed. But obviously, this episode will go heavily into this territory. And today we've got Adam Feit on. We'd arranged this before all this stuff started cascading down. And Adam's a PhD candidate in sports and exercise psychology. And he's the assistant director of performance nutrition at Precision Nutrition. We just had Krista Scott Dixon on, and then we've got Craig Weller on next week. He's another PN guy, because recently we've just been doing a run on all the great PN people we have. So welcome, Adam. It's really great to have you.
Hey, great introduction. I appreciate just kind of laying it down and really reminding us where we are right now, but where we can be. But it's an honor to be here with you guys today, so I appreciate it.
No, we've been really looking forward to it. Glad that we were still able to do it. I guess some of us have a little more time than others. I've actually been trying to arrange a few guests. We reached out to Spencer Nadolski, who's a good friend, and Yoni Friedhoff, and I'm going to try to get Yoni on. Spencer's too busy right now. And we have managed to arrange Mark Fisher for the very near future. Nice. So some people actually, they're more ramped up and busy due to what's going on, but some people actually have a little bit of extra time. So hopefully we'll be able to get we've otherwise have just been too busy to get back on here. But let's jump right into it because
I'm going to say let's how's PN? Like, this is like a personal question. How's PN changing? Or like, has there been any discussions around that? Just because like you'd be right in the middle of like all this online education thing, which I would assume would kind of blow up in a bit. But what are your guys' thoughts on it?
No, it's a great question, Dean. Thank you. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with, but we've partnered up with a lot of the industry's leader in health, fitness, and nutrition. So, you know, we're part of the coalition of essentially health and fitness leaders. And so, you know, it's really had us, I think the key term that's been happening a lot is the word pivot, right? And it's something, you know, pivoting is simply changing directions. It's not going in the complete opposite one. And, you know, when we talked about some of the notes for today, that was a big piece for us. So we may have pivoted a little bit. Maybe that's in terms of when we're launching our products, because, you know, obviously it's important for us as a company to provide as much value as possible, but we have to understand where we are in the world right now. So I know a couple of things that have happened recently that we've been very proud of is we've opened up our Pro Coach software. So our coaching software for free for, I believe, the first 90 days. And, you know, that is just a huge value add because we've had a ton of edits, ton of additions, and just a lot of value add to that over the last couple months. So we're really proud to get that out there. And we've got some things up our sleeves. I don't know exactly which aces and how many, but I know that our team, especially our leadership team, has really done a nice job, setting the path for what we can do for the industry to, not only keep it going during this time, but also to just continually produce results for everybody that's involved. So proud of what we've done, and even more proud of what we're about to accomplish. So thank you to everybody that's been a part of it.
This stigma around like sales or free stuff with a lot of these companies where they're like, oh, why would you do this in this time? And it's just like, some of the time, like goodwill and like just transparency with some of this stuff essentially buys you customers in the long term. And like, maybe it doesn't have to be altruistic, but you can still make money in the future and still give away stuff now or discount stuff. Like, I think that it's interesting how bigger companies are doing it, because there's some people that I think are doing it wrong and alienating themselves. And there's other people who are like embracing this. Like, it's a pivot and it's an opportunity in the shitstorm. But I mean, why wouldn't you do that when you can help people and help your business?
And what's awesome about that, I want to take a lesson from my daughter's gymnastics studio. So my daughter's 5 years old. We go to gymnastics once a week, right? It's not a big investment, but it's, again, at that age with kids where it's an activity with everything. And so small business, and they're closing down. And what they're doing is essentially they're asking for everybody's help. Can you keep paying so we can keep doing the graveyard, the skeleton operations, essentially the overhead? And we will credit that to you when this whole thing passes us. So when I first got the email, I'm like, oh, come on. Like, obviously we're there once a week, we're not going to be doing it anymore. We end up canceling. But when I started reading the email and understanding where the place they were coming from is they want to help us too. Hey, help us keep the lights on now so we don't lose our lease, so we don't lose our contract. And all of the money and all the value you're putting into the business now, we're going to credit you back when things get rolling again. So essentially it's like pre-buying or prepaying. And so I think that's an awesome strategy here. Or as coaches, I've seen a lot on the internet, I'm sure you guys have too, of, hey, I'm still here. I want to provide you a service. It might be a different service right now. Mm-hmm. What do you feel comfortable paying? And if it's a lot, if it's not a lot, we'll figure it out. But I am in this with you throughout this process. We can still find a way to get results. So I think there's a lot of lessons we can learn from each other happening.
But no one knows the right answer. Like I think I was in Costa Rica with Mike Nelson and like Eric Helms.
Oh, nice. You were down at the muscle camp. Yeah.
We were talking about this pricing structure, because like this COVID thing was happening while we're there, and we're all fucking scared we can't leave, and all these products getting released, and Ben wants to do this course and Mike wants to do this course. And I was just like, why don't you just put it out on Facebook? Like, ask the people what they think. Like, should I do this? And should I discount it? Should I have variable pricing? I'm like, let people kind of decide for you, as opposed to thinking you're being sleazy and all this stuff. Because again, the people who are going to be hating on it are going to hate on it anyways. But I think there's I guess the masses have good ideas that we might not necessarily think of in the moment.
There's something really important that needs to be said. There's nothing unethical about trying to retain income and survive. And there's nothing unethical about trying to promote and grow your brand, even at a time of crisis. Absolutely, there are ways that are sleazy, and I think we can see through those things. And I think right now people need to be aware of scams. I've been aggressively reporting these Facebook ads of these bogus looking sites that are offering these, the $600 Bowflex dumbbells for $89. And
really,
I think it's actually a good idea to report these things aggressively, because these are scams. People are posting in there saying that they get for the money. It looks shady, but someone who's desperate right now, a pair of adjustable dumbbells is better than gold at this point. Very hard to get your hands on, and everybody wants some home gym equipment. So outside of the obvious scams, and especially if it's someone that you know to be a reputable person, then if someone is marketing their product, let's say you get a Megan Calloway doing her landminer or push-up, pull-up stuff, which actually kind of works really well right now. I saw Dean Somerset. He was sort of asking people if he felt it was appropriate to put something out. And I think and him and Tony Gentlecorn, overwhelmingly people responded and said, yeah, you guys are like honorable, ethical guys. I don't think anybody would think for a second those two guys were trying to profiteer off of the situation. So I want coaches to understand it's really okay to turn around and go, hey, I'm trying to do some online coaching. One of the things I switched to doing is I'm doing some Skype video training for some of my clients, because, obviously the gym I was working in closed down, and I set up a home gym, and I, up to this point, I've been able to do a very limited amount of training. I'm across the room. I'm cleaning everything that anybody touches, and And as long as I'm allowed to, and I have a very small group of people that I trust and who feel comfortable, then good. And a lot of them have said, hey, you know, this is really important for my mental health, and we should definitely dive into that. So I'm being super, super careful as long as I'm technically allowed to do so. But even then, I'm going to pivot to try to Skype train with some people. And some of my clients have overall been like, hey, listen, we want to support you. We understand what's going on, but they also see the value for themselves. So there's nothing wrong with trying to actually pay your bills and retain your livelihood.
And using Pro Coach as an example, like it kind of works out in your favor on all aspects. You get to give some goodwill back to trainers. They get to test the product. If you're doing what you think you're doing and it's that good, there'll be customers in the future, and it's like a win-win-win-win. And like when I heard that, I'm like, oh, the platform's already built. Like, there's not really any harm, because people aren't going to pay for it now anyways if they weren't going to pay for it. And
right, and I think what's awesome there is why Pro Coach has been so successful is because the content's already there. So we get this mass shift in trying to provide income, right? Like Andrew was talking about, shifting our complete business system and structure to now I have to go online, but I don't have the time to make all of this content because I was doing one-on-ones or I was doing it in-house. So a system like Pro Coach or any other type of online delivery where you already have the content, and now with our beta program, you can now rearrange all the habits. So it used to be what we call the legacy program was, hey, this was the curriculum. It's award-winning. It's been, you know, clinically backed. But now coaches have the opportunity to pick and choose and move things based more on where your client is. So the fact that I can now deliver it online and it's already done for me, and now I can actually do what I do best, and that's coach. That's a huge value, especially in a time like this.
And it's like, not, I don't think people are bashing on Pro Coach, but there's like people actually like getting mad about people like kind of timing things. There's products timed that didn't understand there was a quarantine coming, and it's just shit timing. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I guess I just don't like people being negative about it in this, because essentially trainers are going to get decimated if they don't pivot and they don't get the support. So to like trash on them for doing so, it just seems crazy.
I think, Dean, you just said something I want to jump on this too, because I posted about recently. If you're in the industry right now and you're taking this opportunity to fight the same heavy little squabbles and battles and negative things, your energy is completely misplaced. And I'm actually going to say this very explicitly. I think right now is a great time to mass unfollow people in your network. You may like them, they may be your friends, but there are people who are doing a lot of different things. And one is the same people who are fighting those negative battles. But two, unfollow both the people who are on the extreme ends of this current situation. Unfollow the people who are pretending that there's nothing going on. But this is going to sound kind of interesting. Some people might disagree. Unfollow the people who are pushing hysterical negativity about the worst case scenario, because we got to ride this out regardless. But if you got people who are pumping out all the nastiest, scariest stuff about how bad this is, that shit is going to do more harm through your mental health, your anxiety levels. And I've actually unfollowed some reputable people who I like personally, because I'm just like, I really don't think they actually deep down want to help people. I think they want to freak people so fucking bad that I don't get what their issue is. So, and I am tuning that crap out completely. I think everyone should.
You're talking about a social media quarantine.
I absolutely think that's a wonderful, and it's a good way to say it. In fact, that would make a really good title for this episode. I think you should selectively quarantine what you expose on social media, because I think a lot of us, me the first week, I had a really rough week of anxiety, and I'm not someone who deals with that because I was overwhelmed with the stuff. Now I've leveled off, but I had a very hard time unplugging from social media. And in times of stress, we have less emotional energy to make decisions, and especially like the things that are related to willpower. And it's much easier to get sucked into and locked into the cycle of scrolling social media.
Let's actually ask Adam something, because otherwise we'll just talk shit about this.
Well, I love sitting here, man. This is good stuff. We're just, hanging out and bunch of dudes talking about training and what not to do. So
essentially, you came on and Andrew and I were bitching about it, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, I got something to add to it." And like, "Oh yeah, we're all in this together." And I haven't seen anyone for a while, so it's like, "Oh, let's talk about this." But there's this idea. So Andrew, I'm just going to skip ahead because the industry is under stress. Gyms are closed, and many coaches are worried about their livelihood. So I guess from your perspective, what can people do right now to weather the current storm, and what can trainers and nutrition coaches do to set themselves apart for a strong rebound and for prosperity long term?
Yeah. So I think one way to really look at it is, instead of thinking about like the tactics and strategies right now, really come back to yourself. And I really like, at PN, we talk a lot about self-compassion and a lot of Kristen Neff's works, but, the first principle is to really realign yourself is with common humanity. So that's not only with yourself, but that's like with all the other trainers that you're going through this together. This is your clients, but essentially realizing that like the suffering, like the suck, in coaching, we talk about like embracing the suck. Like this is a shared human experience for everyone, whether it's moms and dads, it's grandparents. I mean, we're seeing the same photos online, right? Like people are meeting their grandkids through a window, or, they're having dates, but they're 6 feet apart and things like that. So understanding that we're all going through this and that we're in this together, I think is an important concept to realign ourselves. And then we've got obviously self-kindness. I think there's a lot of clients right now that are beating themselves up because they're not doing as well as they were when they were with guys like us, right? Because I wasn't in the gym at 6:30, or I wasn't at my boot camp, or I wasn't with my personal trainer after work. And so they think, well, because I don't have the equipment, because I don't have the accountability and the support, I suck at life. And then we spiral out of control, right? And so it goes from, Andrew was talking about earlier, we're on one end of the spectrum of defriending all of the mass hysteria negativity, to now we're on the complete other side of, I was doing so well and now I'm doing nothing. So I think being a little bit more kind to yourself as a entrepreneur, as a person in this field, that we're all learning this together. And then last part, I think, probably one of the most important pieces here is this idea of mindfulness, or just simply, let's just calm down for a moment right here. Let's take a non-judgmental, essentially a receptive state where we're going to sit with what our thoughts are, what our feelings are, and how those all interact with our behaviors. So, I don't want to go too meta on that, but I think it's important where we start thinking about, hey, how we're going to rebound, how are we going to make them, well, let's just time out, man. Let's just take the time out. And I know at PN we talk about like never hitting the pause button and always doing something. I'm all about that. But there is no shame in simply hitting the pause button right now. Gather yourself and go back to your situation when you were first starting, right? And take a reflection. And if that's at the end of the day, if that's at the beginning of the day, if that's just 5 minutes at lunch and being like, okay, let me think about where we're going, what I'm doing, and how all of this is making me feel. Because if we can't be aware, we can't act. So I would first start there. Go ahead.
I love that, because it's something I realized too, and anyone who's listened to the podcast for a while or has read some of my stuff know that productivity is cliche, but I definitely have pushed a message about, spend less time consuming things, spend less time, absorbing mindless television or what have you, and put more effort into your career. But you're right. I think it's really okay to put that stuff on pause. I relentlessly consume audiobooks. I've really kind of chilled out on that. I'm barely driving anymore, so I'm not doing that.
Talk about like Tiger King. Like,
well, I'm not. I haven't even seen that. Everybody's freaking out about Tiger King. I don't even know what the fuck that's about.
And everyone needs to go watch Tiger King right now, because then
But
you'll talk about appreciating your situation. Like, you can really appreciate life right now if you watch.
I started watching through an old TV show that I love. I love the show Numbers, and so I'm like partway through season 2, and I gave myself permission. Here's the key: I gave myself permission to turn around and just enjoy some mindless stuff, because you can immerse yourself in it. It takes you out of the current climate of stress and the constant anxiety. And we all have to just find ways to get through this. I think this is important too. A year from now, 18 months from now, 2 years from now, we're gonna look back at this and go, holy fuck, like that was awful. Everything's okay. We got through it, economy rebounded to a certain degree, whatever timeline that is. And we were okay. And professionally, I know there's a lot of people in dire financial straits right now, and man, my heart hurts for those people, and I'm worried. But as a society, we will come out the other side of it okay. And I think you just have to say, all right, I just have to get through this day by day.
Well, and another piece to that, I'm going to use Costa Rica since it's top of mind, but there was a presentation on stress and people reaching out and meeting people where they're at. But I think a lot of the times in this situation, you can get people to acknowledge that it is hard and the things that they've done were really good. But like Adam was saying, go back to that and just acknowledge that this is where I'm at. This is how hard I work. It's really awesome that I did these things, but it's also awesome that we're here and I can kind of not even plateau, but just hang out here. Because I think a lot of people don't take the time to appreciate the fact that like it's not going to be linear. And this is a perfect example to kind of test the waters on a situation that isn't perfect. Not to say this mimics real life, but in some form or fashion, this is a test for a lot of people.
This shit is real life because we're right in the middle of it right now, right? It's unprecedented. I mean, we've never had something like this in our lifetime, but this is very fucking real.
Yeah. Well, and I want to bring that back to, like, if we go back to training, right? You know, we know linear periodization works until it doesn't. In real life, there's nothing linear about real life, right? So this is real life. You know, my financial investor or advisor called me and was like, "Hey, you good?" And I'm like, "Well, clearly we're not." He's like, "I just want to remind you, man, long term, think big picture, right? We always come back. Here's the 80-year prospectus, right? All these guys send. I get it. Like, I'm not freaking out right now, but it's the same thing with training. Right? Things are going well. It's not going well right now. Okay. So let's readjust and change it. So I think it's very real life, like you talked about. And we have already done elements of this in any area of our life already. We just have to take the time to chill out and actually, oh yeah, that happened. Okay. Then I bounce back and we're okay. So obviously this is a different magnitude.
I think to see the bodybuilders here. Like, I think the people that are freaking out the most in the strength conditioning realm and the, whatever you want to call this realm, the meathead realm, is all the bodybuilders are trying to figure out ways to keep the volume up. And so I'm going to see what interesting ideas come out of this shit show. Like wow, Mike had that post.
Something that I've been saying on my Instagram, and I think this is important too, and I want people to have real takeaways. This is not the fucking time to be on the bleeding edge of your training and recovery stress, okay? Your stress is a cumulative pool of physical and emotional and life stress. And right now, we're all running very hot on stress hormones. So good, like normal training is actually a really important part of maintaining immune health. But if we're on that bleeding edge of what we can recover from, and we already have all the stress we're trying to manage, then you're probably going to risk suppressing your immune function to a certain extent, and you're increasing the likelihood of injury because you're not able to recover as well. And right now, this is not the time I want to be trying to get into an ER with a serious injury, okay? Like, fuck that.
I'm in the apocalypse, Jim. I have food, weights. I don't want to leave home.
How you approach your training volume right now. And now is not the time for aggressive progression. Now is the time for probably maintenance. Adam, what are your thoughts?
Well, I love that because, you know, I volunteer at the college I'm at where I did my undergrad. I'm doing my PhD now, and I'm working with the football team, and we're realigning our training plan. You know, now we would be getting ready for spring ball. And something we talked about on the meeting today was essentially we are going to take frequency over intensity throughout this entire process. So what was a normal off-season program, it was 3 to 4 days, you know, hanging and banging weights, like 75 to 90 minutes, is now going to be, you know, what we probably call in the field like feeder sessions, where I'd rather get 6 or 7 small microdose sessions throughout the week and be consistent with that. Because like you said, stress, the allostatic load of everything else happening. You know, for me, like I still have classes. I'm in 9 credits and I'm working on my dissertation. And guess what? Higher ed gives 0 cares. We're going to do this online and we're going to finish it. So now I've got to be able to manage that with 2 kids under the age of 7. My spouse is a professor, so she's managing that load. So yeah, you're right. This is like seasons of life. What was an off season, it might be in season right now, and we're gonna lower the threshold, but we're gonna be more consistent with that. And that's up to us as educators and fitness professionals of realizing it's okay to do less by doing more and spacing that out and bringing down that intensity and just let's start doing the things that we haven't had time for, right? Social distancing, great. I put down 10 yards of mulch last weekend. My wife decided to buy another 10 yards. Like, I am outside and I'm getting broke off by a shovel and some, you know, chipped wood. So I'm not saying go that extreme, but
we had that talk and we had a round table with like Katie St. Pierre, Harold Gibbons, and Rich Dodd. Anyways, you can use some of the, like we call them home workouts and stuff, but it's a good time to work on stuff like position, like your isometric holds, like tendon health, especially for like athletes. They can take this time to do the stuff that we know we tell them to do, but they never fucking do anyways. But now they have nothing but time. So we talked about just reframing the purpose of the training sessions too, because again, they have no excuses now, and they probably still won't do it in quarantine, but it might be an opportunity.
Yeah, well, I mean, just like from a strength conditioning standpoint, the school I'm at, it's a small Division III school. It's almost 700 student athletes. We got an awesome weight room, 18 racks, 25 yards of turf, but we're an athletic factory. So our coaches can't, and our athletes can't do extensive movement work, right? So whether you're following Charlie Francis or whether you're looking at Altus track and field, hey, now we have the time to saying, all right, you have your backyard. Now let's do all the sprinting. Let's do all the movement work, the change of direction. Let's get better with our quality, because you don't have another group of kids pushing you out of the way to the next zone. So I'm with you 100%. Is now we've actually treated this as, hey, this is now an extended summer. We now have the time to do it. Let's be great at it, and because we don't have any excuses in that regard.
In some colleges, I'm sure if they're banging heads with the coach and the coach wants them to go hard all year, and you can't really have that opportunity to kind of do what you want, you almost get a forced deload for some of these people that may or may not be ramping up the volume to in the off season when maybe they should be focusing on other stuff. So I don't know. I think that there's not as much bad as people think in this, I guess we'll call it a struggle, especially if you reframe it. Like, smart coaches will figure out ways to get what they want, I think, a lot of the times.
Yeah, no, that's it. And that was actually one of the points I put down, how are you working through this? And it all comes back to reframing. Ryan Holiday talks about it. The Stoics talk about it. Is it an obstacle or is it an opportunity? Right. And yeah, there are some things that are challenging, but then you just remind yourself, well, why is this here? Why is this happening? And then it gets you to think in a different direction. It gets you to be creative and start looking at things from a strengths perspective instead of a weakness or limitation. And then at the end of this, we're all going to be better because of this, right? So if we've been a trainer or a coach and we've been very unidimensional with our approach, with our business, I was a co-owner of a gym for 5 years. And guess what? I realized that I'm very fortunate not to be part of that right now, but I'm also very fortunate of, like, if we didn't do the things that we had to do, it probably wouldn't be still in its 8th year and systemized and replicated and still going strong and finding ways to continue to provide service. So it comes down to reframing 100%.
Well, and Andrew's a perfect example. I was watching your social media in Costa Rica because I was like, I just need to keep up with everything. And like almost within 2 days, you had like a fucking home gym built, like you were ready to pivot. And I think a lot of the people who jumped on some of those, I guess, actions early are probably going to be the ones that kind of see this through, at least in the acute, I guess, short-term part of this, like without seeing huge financial drops, just because trainers are notorious for being really shitty with money.
This is the second time I've had to do a major pivot in my fitness career in almost a decade. And funny enough, you mentioned Ryan Holiday and The Obstacle's the Way. So the first pivot, I was actually halfway through my original reading of The Obstacle's Way. It's one of my favorite books. And I had dealt with a lot of a very hostile working environment, and then some escalating harassment and a whole bunch of crazy shit at a former employer. I won't name them. Anyone's in the know kind of can figure it out, but I want to be careful what I say. And there were some coworkers who were running for a while. It was against the rules, but the company never dealt with them. A multi-level marketing, a very aggressive recruiting thing within the company. And of course, I was a vocal opponent of their behavior, and it had been very bad blood for a while. And eventually they managed to manipulate some things and lie about some stuff and get me into some trouble and get me suspended for a couple days. So ultimately I realized this is not an environment I can stay in. Right? I can't stay here. I'm too vulnerable. My livelihood, my clientele are all tied to this company. So I gave it a few months, but at the end of the year, I decided that I was going to leave the company, and I'd finished up all my obligations with every client that I worked with. And I started as an independent contractor at Evolve, and it was great. And of course, what ended up happening, there was no consequence for this, but my clientele, they were free to decide what they wanted to do, and I didn't solicit anybody, but they just decided, well, we're free, and a lot of them wanted to come with me, and so they followed. And then I built up more and more clientele over time, and it's actually the best thing in my career. I was put in this very difficult situation. But if I wrote it out, who knows, maybe the next incident would have gotten me actually fired despite my track record of performance. And then I would have been vulnerable with no opportunity to rebuild with clientele and scramble it. Now this, like you said, same thing. All of a sudden, I just had a feeling that, shit, the government's going to force the gyms to close. What the hell do I do? So I scrambled. I reached out. Some people had some extra equipment that they weren't using or didn't need, and they donated it to me. And I spent a couple grand on the pieces that I need. I set up a home gym, and it's fantastic. And now that's an investment that I'll always have that to work in myself. I will always have it to train the occasional client in, because of course I'm going to go back and be in the physical space that I usually am, as early as we're able to. But you're right. If you get paralyzed by fear of the unknown, then you lose the opportunity to jump at something as quickly as possible. Say, okay, I have to pivot. What are my options? What is the opportunity within this? And another thing that a lot of people are doing is they're shifting more online. People are making fun of it a little bit. This cliche, everybody's now all of a sudden an online trainer, but that's ridiculous. We have all these great resources like the Online Trainer Academy through the Personal Trainer Development Center, John Goodman stuff. We've got Pro Coach, we've got PN, you've got True Coach is a really good thing that I really like a lot too. You have a lot of good resources out there to try to develop and build an online base. Now, we also have to factor in that, okay, not everybody all of a sudden has the money. A lot of industries have been heavily impacted by this, and they're not going to have the money to hire trainers. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to put yourself out there, because someone might really value this, or your physical in-person clientele may want to shift to work with you online if you no longer can train them in person. So I think that this is one of the best places you can pivot your efforts right now, is to go into the online space.
Like, there's a reason why Zoom stock went up. You know what I mean? And like, I think that if I don't want to say that everyone should embrace it, because I think there's some people that probably shouldn't if they don't need to. But if you can kind of embrace some of these changes, you can start to see what works and what doesn't. And I think that that's what's going to come out of this, is this advancement almost in ideas using technology to make money from fitness. Because there's already been people, early adopters, like PN's a perfect example, Pro Coach or True Coach. And anyways, there's a lot of online platforms that are doing it, but the individual trainer hasn't necessarily looked into doing stuff on their own. So I'm actually kind of excited to see what comes out of this. Even like a local gym, Jesky's Place, they're doing like Instagram live workouts, and they're charging people, and like all their members that weren't there just doing it at home. And like, you could do that after this quarantine when you have your gym open, because it's a good way to make money with the space that you already have, where there's a lot of gyms that have empty space making $0 and they still have that overhead. So I think that this could be huge.
So Adam, what do you think is the medium term and long term outlook on the fitness industry? How do you think we come back from this?
Well, I think I might throw one in there between short and medium. I think what we need, what I would encourage and recommend as an industry, is stop, or at least consider the idea of providing short-term relief by workouts of the day, by grease board, whiteboard. Here's what you need now. It is a very real thing right now. We need to remember the services we provide are progressions, they're curriculums, they're medium to long term. And so I was a big fan of it, right? Last week, 2 weeks, like, oh, this is a new one each day, right? Like, maybe I'm in my own reload and I need a little bit of a shakeup, and okay. But we've got a lot of people that we're making progress on what we're doing. We have to start thinking now in bigger chunks, right? I just got our governor in Massachusetts. School is out till May. Well, we're online. This could go through the summer. So how are we evolving there? So I think that would be step number one, is yes, be aware of the short term and then now, but start planning for the long term. And I think going from that is, don't be afraid to try all of the things right now, because when, like Dean talked about, Zoom is really awesome. And there's also a lot of other great tools out there, and there's going to be opportunities to try them all out and figure it out. So when your business gets to that next level, and when it succeeds, because that's what you will do, right? We're all passionate, productive people. We will find a way. If our family depends on us, we will find a way to make money and keep going. So not being afraid to try these things. And I think even more long-term is to continue to be yourself and continue to offer what you have offered already, and be in the spot that your clients are in. And so what I mean by that is, it can be very easy. The word of the day, or the week or crisis, is pivot. We have to pivot and change direction, but we don't lose sight of like our own compass. And when I talk to teams and I'm working as a strength and conditioning coach, like we're resting on leadership, we're resting on our seniors. You have to be the compass for the culture. People are going to look to you for, what did you do when this happened? How are you doing it now? And what are you learning from this experience when you get back that? Because I hate to think about like all the past, but bad things happen so good things can prosper, right? At some point, people decided that car seats for kids were a good idea. Why do you think that was, right? In New York City, right? Fire escapes. Now they have to be out there. Why do you think that is? So we have all these precautions and airline safety because things happen. and we're going to learn from that. So I know I went on a little bit of a spectrum there, and I hope I wasn't out, but hey, let's plan for a longer period of time with our training programs, right? Let's really put this into perspective, whether it's periodization, whether it's cycling, whether it's just, hey, let's start thinking about a goal from 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 weeks from here, and let's reverse engineer that. Try the things, embrace all the free education that's out there when you have time. Don't just fill up all your time with all of that, because like you said, you need some time to decompress. And just remember that, like, how much better we are going to be because of this, whether that's our investments, whether that's our services and offerings, and whether that's if we've been, a little, I've only done this, and now I'm trying to do all of these other things. We start getting, if it's multiple sources of revenue, multiple networks and social supports, like we've connected. I'm looking forward to staying in touch, because you bring up Mike Nelson and Ben in Costa Rica, and then you guys are, a little bit north of Calgary. And I'm like, all right, so there's a lot of good things happening here. Like, be more receptive to that. I think that's huge.
And the one thing I want to touch on, and we talked about this in the roundtable, was like when after this 1 week free home workout phase and the fun, I don't want to say fun, but that period's gone, the people who are going to do well, it's not going to look too much different than what they were doing. It's just going to be modifications to whatever exercise selection. But like periodization is still a thing. Linear programming still works. You can still layer those things on in a home workout program. And I think that, like you said, you still have to be yourself. You still have to kind of hone in on the foundation that got you there, because it's just a little bit different, but it's still the same. But,
I didn't have anything to jump in and add, so no. It's just,
we nailed it. Like, we're done. Like, that's how you survive the apocalypse.
What's funny is just even having this conversation soothes my soul a little bit and makes me feel better. And I think we don't want to go out and search for information that conforms to our biases or is factually incorrect about what's going on. But I think at the same time, like I said earlier, you've got to detach from this fear and hysteria, and you've got to be careful with media, and you have to be very careful with social media and who ultimately you're listening to, because at a certain point, once you have the facts about the reality, then continuing to immerse yourself in all this negativity is going to do immeasurable harm to your emotional health. And I think we should probably go back to that, Adam. I want to get your thoughts on what you think are going to be the mental health costs and risks here, managing that stuff. So, but to the coaches listening and to the enthusiasts listening, guys, just please be really careful about what you're exposing yourself to right now, because you can drown in this, and you can drown in a way that it's going to be really hard to dig yourself back out. So, Adam, what do you think people should do to be on guard about their emotional health and to come up to their side okay?
Well, and to add to that too, because we were talking about this before, mental health aspects, I want you to talk about the athletic part about it, because we do have strength coaches listening to this, and I think that they're going to be in similar situations, and they may not have thought about the things you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously a great area to explore here, and when we were talking when we first got on, was this idea of accepting what's outside of our control. I think right now at PN we're talking a lot about our spheres of control, and it's not an instant process, right? There are going to be a lot of things that we may have felt that we have been in control of, and now we feel that it's not. But I think going through that, and at PN we talk about this process of noticing and naming, right? This awareness process of noticing what comes up to you, both cognitively, emotionally, and physically, and naming what that is and how it makes you feel or how it makes you act. So I think that's a part of the process, and being okay with letting go, right? I think a lot of the times in our development as coaches or athletes or trainers or clients, whatever we may be, is we're in this rhythm, we're very rigid, and this is the way it's always been done. And when I talk to athletes about like routines, right, like pre-performance routines, or just this idea of, I did a workshop yesterday with the Buffalo Bills on habit development. And I want these aspects of our life to be like an old school ice cube tray. I don't know if you guys have fancy refrigerator or freezers, and I don't, right? I'm old school, still got the, put it in the tray and that's it. But what I like about those is it gives me what I want, is the ice cube, but it needs to be two things. It needs to be firm. So I need to have structure. I need to have some element of normalcy, whatever that is, how we choose to define it. But it's also got to be flexible enough so I can actually get the ice cubes out. And I think when we focus so much on the spectrum of like, no, it's got to be this, it's got to be the routine, we're sticking to the script. We talk about mental health. Now, again, we have anxiety, right? Now we have these states of apprehension and tension and negative emotion. So what then became a state is now becoming trait. It's now was acute, now becomes chronic, which then it's a giant cycle, like you had talked about, Andrew, of just affecting other areas of our life. So it's be firm, find some rigidity to your routine and to your structure, but also be okay with being okay, right? At PN, we talk about progress. You're not going to get perfection. I'm going to want the person, I think it was Moneyball, if you guys saw the movie with Brad Pitt, right? Great book. But, you know, they were ahead of their time. They were looking at like, does the dude get on base? Like, I'm not worrying about dingers. I'm not worrying about what is his on-base percentage. And I think that's how we should start looking at things, is reframing what is success for us and how can I make the most of that now? And so to go back to the whole idea of mental health, it's realizing what's outside of your control and reclaiming what is within your control, and taking the time not only for yourself, but the people around you, because how you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, and the behaviors and actions you do because of that, it doesn't just affect you. We are all now in quarantine. So if I don't get my head right, that affects my wife, and that affects my kids, and vice versa. And so it's really taking a step back and acknowledging all that, because, you know, in psychology, there's this, you guys have heard it, this cognitive triangle, right? Thoughts affect feelings, feelings affect behaviors, and it's a constant cycle. And so go back to the pause button, hit it real quick, find out what has been going well, what's not going well, and what are we going to do different? And establish those check-ins with yourself. Establish these new ideas, and not being afraid of veering away, but going in the right direction where you want to go. So I'll pause there, because I think we can go in a lot of directions, but you know, not getting crazy about it, just simply adjusting and adapting as needed.
I just want to jump on the Moneyball thing. Anyone who has seen it,
he loves baseball.
well, I was
Was
just
that a good reference? If I botched it, man, I apologize.
So, you know, if anyone, you know, hasn't seen Moneyball, but you're sort of curious, it was made in 2011. And one of the guys who is not a famous baseball player, but he's sort of a perfect example of the Moneyball thing, where he's a good on base guy, was Scott Hatteberg, who was this guy who was a fringe guy by the old assessments. Anyway, he was played by Chris Pratt before Chris was actually famous for the Guardians of the Galaxy and all these other sort of things. So if you want to go back and watch it, you'll see Chris Pratt in there as this guy who was actually a pretty good ball player. He just wasn't highly valued under the old metrics. Anyway, so
and he was good, right? I have to go watch it. That was like one of my favorite movies too. Like, I love the idea behind it. What's the equivalent of getting on base for nutrition?
Show up.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Like, show up. I mean, my wife got interviewed yesterday for a sports performance company, and they're just like, you know, have you thought of, do you have a new breakfast? Do you have a new routine? You know, what has changed? And for us, it's very easy nutritionally to eat all the things that we normally don't buy, right? Because maybe that's all that's in the freezer, right? Like, we went to a grocery store yesterday because we had to, and a lot of frozen potato products. Mm-hmm. Or I can look for the things that are staples in my routine that was there when I was not in a pandemic, and it's there when it is. And so I think what's getting on base, man, you got to show up to play, and you can't make excuses of, well, things are different now. There's no doubt, but different is now, and we have to find a way to adjust. We can't make excuses for that.
I have a feeling people are going to kind of veer in one of two directions during, you know, quarantine or whatever we're all living with right now. One is they're going to be thrifty, and they're going to say, okay, like, I loaded up, I didn't hoard, but I loaded up a little bit on extra oatmeal, which I like every day. And, you know, things like rice. And I don't eat out a whole lot anyway, but I mean, there's none of that right now. You know, it's home cooked meals, and my nutrition is pretty much stable. I didn't go and buy a shit ton of snacks and then eat them all within 3 days, which of course I think some people are genuinely doing. There's a lot of jokes about that. And I didn't go and buy a whole bunch of alcohol. And there's some arguments over essential businesses staying open, and people are freaking out and arguing over like liquor stores staying open. And they're talking about, well, you get alcoholic, literally alcohol. It's a whole different discussion. But I do have the thought that maybe right now, binge drinking isn't a good choice to deal with the current situation. You're hiding from the reality, and it's only going to pay off.
Where does binge drinking fit on the statistic board? I don't know.
I think we all have to be
I think
thoughtful about where we spend our money. And for me, especially, I mean, I've got a liquor cabinet full of booze and I touch it gradually, but I have no intentions of getting into it because I don't want to be spending money on that right now. I want to make sure I can spend money on the things that matter. And as scary as it is, I also, like, I look at my clients who are supporting me because a lot of them actually are comfortably employed, but there's definitely some other ones that are losing their jobs. I want to be able to turn around and support some of the small businesses that I like when I have the opportunity coming out the other side of this, because I'm a small business. And if I am not trying at least a little bit to support them, well, do I really have the right to expect people to turn around and support me? And it goes back to what Adam was saying before about, people still paying, for the gymnastic gym. There are places like jiu-jitsu studios. They were fucked on day one of this one. But any small gym, and the saying has been going around, it's definitely true. If you want your gym to still be there when this is all over, don't cancel your membership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay? Anyway, I mean, we don't even know what kind of timeline we're on, but I am a little worried about some, parts of our industry. I'm worried about some of the gym businesses, the mom and pop shops. I just hope everybody comes out of it. I know that the restaurant industry, oh my God, they're in trouble. Fuck. I think a lot of big businesses will be fine, but I am worried a little bit about this. So you also want to look at, okay, what are the places you really like? There's a little sandwich shop here in Edmonton I like called Feit. And I'm going to make sure that once this is all up and running again, I'm going to be going in there and buying stuff from them.
I wanted to ask Adam this because you mentioned the Buffalo Bills, but and I know some speed coaches who are dealing with Olympic athletes. What's going to happen here with some of these college athletes? And we were talking about high school athletes and college athletes that are going to miss their season. What do you think the long-term effects of this stuff are going to be? And is there a way to kind of mitigate some of this damage that's potentially happening with? We'll use mental health, for example, because of the situation.
So I think what's really unique right now, we went from canceling all, let's say, NCAA sports, right? So the national governing body in college athletics in the States, everything was canceled to now they're offered another year of eligibility, okay, which is great. However, we still haven't thought about how that's going to look. So to play this out mentally health-wise, right, we've got a couple fifth years that are coming back for football, but they're going to be graduating already. So now do they enroll in another degree program? What happens if they wanted to get on with their job, right? My commencement for my graduation now gets moved to either August or October. Well, what happens if people want to move on, right? So I think mentally, are we providing enough service? I know at the beginning of our year, we didn't have enough counselors on campus. We had a tragedy on campus and we didn't have enough help there. Do we have resources? Do we have outlets? Are we going to capitalize on social media right now? So from a strength conditioning standpoint, we're all famous. We're all famous of seeing other famous people post all the things that they're doing in their week 7 highlight videos and the chains and the bands and the tires and all that stuff. But what about everybody else? Are the nutrition coaches going to come out and continue to offer services? Are the sports psychology coaches, are the psychologists, are the counselors going to come out as well? So the ramifications could be exponential because, guys, we know, and if you're listening to this, it doesn't take much to get in shape or to stay in shape. And there's a lot of other variables that we can play. But, strength will stick around for about 30 days. Conditioning will stick around for about 30 days. Speed and power, that's going to drop off a little bit earlier. So coaches are going to find different methods to keep that, but I'd be playing the long game. I'd be playing the whole entire game here. I'd be thinking mentally, I'd be thinking emotionally, I think socially, everything we talk about at PN with our deep health model. You got Olympians right now that are getting postponed.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it's like to have a quadrennial plan right now just shatter. And all right, now we have to go through everything and repeat. So I don't have the answers. I wish I did. I'm one piece of a puzzle that deserves to be solved. And I think we've all got to look holistically here and look at all the variables at play.
I think that's the main thing, though, is not to say that it fits my bias, obviously, but that we need to look at all the stuff, not just zoom in on oh my God, speed's going to drop off. Oh my God, you can't get this training plan in. It's start to set up. And this goes for anyone, nutrition coaches, behavior coaches, fucking fitness trainers, start planning for some of the stuff that's going to pop up by using your brain with all the stuff we know anyways in the current time when we're training people, and kind of just blow that up and just account for it. Because if you don't think about that, those are the coaches that may not do well post quarantine. You know what I mean? Like they just have that narrow vision of it all.
Here's a thought for anyone who likes reading. It sort of popped in my mind earlier because I saw someone mention the phrase. The book, Nassim Nicholas Taleb's book, Black Swan, really good idea to read right now. I think I'm going to go back to it because what he's talking about with black swans are literally these unprecedented and unpredictable events. This is a black swan, the very definition of it. So it gets you sort of in the philosophy of how to navigate these sort of things. So I'm going to go back and check that book out again because I think the timing's excellent.
Is that different than the movie?
A totally different concept than
Okay. Yeah. The movie was like a ballerina, right? I remember.
Horton's movie. Yeah. Are you familiar with Taleb's writing?
I'm not, but I'm going to put it on my list because obviously we've got time. So.
It'll be on your list, but it's very difficult. It's
for anyone who is listening. So Taleb is an author. He's a pompous ass who loves to let you know that he is more intelligent than you are. But he's also a really brilliant author with some really incredible ideas. His book, Anti-Fragile, is fantastic. Fooled by Randomness, Skin in the Game is the new one, and then Black Swan. So he's got 4 big ones. And yeah, they're heavier reading for sure. If you're someone who's kind of on the level of likes to read a lot of books with swearing in the title, like obviously The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and if that's kind of the level you're functioning at, Black Swan won't work for you. But if you've taken that entry-level book and you've stepped into things like The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, or if you've ever done, Thinking Fast and Slow, these kind of books, you can handle Taleb's writing. Just be prepared for the fact that the guy is a pompous jackass, but he's a very good writer.
That's a pretty good sales pitch. I like it. That should be your that's like your training fitness. Like you're a pompous jackass, but you're good at training.
There's plenty of those out there.
Should we? How much time do you got left, Andrew?
I have 10 minutes. Not even. I have 8 minutes.
Ask him what's the question you? Sorry, Adam. I forgot. We pivoted from our old question on how many books we've read, and Andrew instead just gave his own book.
Well,
this is the definition of life right now, right? You have a plan and it changes. You got to adapt.
It changed for a month and I forget it.
I wasn't planning on asking it because we sort of delved into it, but I guess it's relevant. And the question that goes out to our guests now is, like, what do you do with your spare time to kind of step away from work and step away from stress or to de-stress? But obviously that paradigm has shifted a little bit. But I suppose it's still a valid question. And what are you doing right now for yourself to manage the anxiety and the stress of what we're all experiencing?
I think that's a very valid, appropriate question right now. And one thing I want to challenge all the listeners, if you're still with us, and something that was really one of the first lessons I kind of anchored down to when I became part of the PN family as a client and as a student and then a coach and now, part of the curriculum team, is everything that we've said yes to over time, we've also said no to something or many other things. And I really anchor down to that because my life has been 100+ miles an hour. For the last almost 3 years, I've been working full-time. I've been going to school full-time. I've been parenting full-time and spousing full-time. I've overcome mono for my second time. I got pneumonia at the same time. And I don't wear that as a badge of like, hell yeah, we're grinding, right? Like, there's, get to the edge. But I've said a lot of things. No, I've said no to a lot of things. And that might have been time with others. That may have been projects. That might have been relationships and emails. So for me, and this is my message for everybody, is don't rush to fill all the time with something else. Like, if you haven't been bored, be bored. Like, honestly, if you haven't watched mindless TV, watch mindless TV. And don't rush to fill it up with all of the other things because you've said yes to a lot of things. Now, why don't you say yes to the other things? So tie that into what I'm saying yes now. I just spent the last 3 hours building a basketball hoop for my kids. Like, all right, this is a good opportunity to get outside more. I'm outside a lot more. I'm getting things done around the house, but I'm also more intentful and purposeful with the time I have with the people I love because my life has been all gas and no brakes for 3 years. And I have accepted that I don't have to commute to school anymore. I have accepted that I don't have to be in meetings all over campus. And I'm enjoying it. And I'm being very purposeful with the people around me. So I'll do that. And I'm training a lot more. It's shorter, it's more frequent, but it's a lot more consistent because I've got a pretty awesome garage gym I'm proud of. So
I think you also just highlighted something that is relevant right now to what I said earlier. It's, if you had mono twice and, developed pneumonia because you're running that much effort and obviously the stress that comes with it, then I suspect, anecdotally, but I suspect that you probably ran down your immune system to the point you're more susceptible to these things. And again, I really hope that everybody takes away from this. We are going to go through a stressful time for a while, and it's going to be worse for others, especially people who are under financial duress right now. Mm-hmm. So be very thoughtful about the physical stress you're placing on your body with your training efforts too. And I saw this recently. Again, this extra stress, like I said earlier, it interferes with our ability to decide to do the harder tasks versus default to the very easy stuff like being in front of television and scrolling social media. So if we want to break that, if you feel anxiety about not being productive, you're just going to make it worse. Instead, just pick something that matters. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Pick something that matters and then allot some time to it, then sit down. That's how I got back to writing. I lost 2 weeks of any sort of productive writing. And you can cherry pick something that's really, truly important while, like you said, not trying to do it all. And I think right now is the worst time to try to do it all or to put that pressure on yourself.
Yeah. And I think what's awesome about that is, you can use like the Pomodoro technique where, you or cluster your workload, or, James Clear talks about it, like break it up into the 2-minute rule. So if there's something that you want to get back to, set a deliberate timer for X amount of minutes and do it. And then that's it. And don't put any more pressure on yourself to keep doing it. But if you're in the zone, if you enter what we call flow state, right, and things are rolling, keep at it and keep moving. But I love that because we want to focus on doing all the things we haven't been able to. That's not making it any better either. So be a little bit more mindful with what you choose and how long you do it, and we're going to be okay.
I was in a flow state watching Tiger King, for sure.
I keep hearing about this Tiger King. When I make some time, maybe we'll check it out.
Like, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, if you're gonna watch it, like, and you're gonna just dabble in it, just be prepared to, like, if you watch 10 seconds or like 2 minutes of it, you're gonna be stuck. So just plan for it and don't let your kids watch it. Okay, that was my plug for Tiger King. Where can our audience find you? And kind of where do people consume the work you're putting out there?
Hey, this was awesome, guys. A lot, especially now with as much information's out there, it's nice to just be in a situation where we're just hanging and just talking. I think in this industry, so I appreciate you guys very much. I look forward to this coming out. But social media, like I'm on Facebook. Dean, I had to get rid of a couple guys to get back on that. So I've got some hate mail, like I told you about. Instagram, AE Feit, Twitter, Adam_Feit. I'm not on there a lot just because, a lot of things are happening. I'm trying to be a little bit more deliberate with my time. My website's adamfeit.com, but, putting out a lot of great content at precisionnutrition.com. And, for all the fit pros out there, like stay with the, healthandfitnesscoalition.com. A lot of great experts out there. Online Training Academy. We've got Trainerize. We had Dr. Michael Gervais and some experts from PN. So there's a lot. I think BJ Fogg's going on there. So Tiny Habits, just a lot of great things there. But if you're in the PN community, just tag me in the Facebook group, and I'd love to chat and connect. So appreciate all of you, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend with you today.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. We totally we freeballed this, but it was good because I think that we all need to get stuff off our chests right now. So it's perfect. We just did it on your podcast, and we just asked your opinion.
And I'll say this to anyone who's listening to this, guys. Now would be a really great time to reach out to me and Dean and touch base and let us know how you're doing, even if you've never messaged before. I got a message yesterday from one of our listeners, and they're saying that they really appreciate the fact that we're doing these because it gave them something to do. Some of you guys have more free time now. Take your mind off of things. And give us certainly feedback, but just let us know what you want us to deal with for the next little bit, because I don't want the next 5 to 10 episodes to be entirely about what we're dealing with, but at the same time I think it's relevant, it's top of mind. And like I said at the start, if you're someone who's found this as sort of an archived episode, you're going through them much later on as this has passed, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to revisit it, just to not take for granted what we are dealing with right now. Because, hopefully in lifetime we never see anything like this ever again, but the possibility exists. So I think, like we talked a lot about in this episode, if you think about ways to make your income, your business more robust and resilient against black swan type events of this nature, then you can probably deal with this or a similar situation if it happens in the future, God forbid.
Cool.
So thanks for being with us. We really appreciate you guys patronizing us for this long. I mean, this is episode 132, if I've counted correctly, and we've been doing this quite a long time now.
Gonna put in a plug right now. This is the first one during this crazy time, right? First podcast. I think we should revisit this.
Yeah.
And let's all get back and talk about when this thing passes, whenever it does, think about, hey, what did we talk about today? And let's recap. Let's be the Monday morning quarterback and see what happened.
Absolutely. I know you're going to be coming back on the podcast for sure. I'm looking forward to that. And for everybody who's listening, again, we don't often say this either, but right now, share this with someone who's in your world, especially if you got a personal trainer or a coach or an enthusiast who may be having a really rough time through all this stuff. A lot of our resources on a lot of our episodes with great people like Abe, we recently had Krista Scott Dixon. And, Krista's ideas are good for any stage of your career, any state of our world. She's brilliant. She's just an amazing person. You work with her, so you know what you're dealing with.
She's my coach. She's brought me up the ranks all the way from the bench to where we're playing now. So very thankful to have her in my life.
She is spectacular. So, and then hopefully, I think our next episode will be with your coworker Craig Weller, who I'm looking forward to kind of getting to know a little bit. And then we've just arranged, I just got word during this, we arranged Mark Fisher, like I mentioned, but I'm going to have Mark Fisher and Chad Landers together, and they're buddies.
Oh, nice.
And I actually, Chad has become a good friend of mine. He's a gym owner in LA, and obviously his gym, Push Private Fitness, can't be open, and Mark Fisher Fitness has got to close. And New York City is actually getting hit really, really hard with this right now. And I'm really grateful to get those two guys on here because I want to hear what they have to say, because these are also two of the most positive and charismatic people in our industry. So don't think this just affects the little guys. And there's some guys who have got brand names and they've established that they're dealing with the same sort of shit we are. Anyone who owns a physical gym, you look at a guy like Luca Hocevar, we had on recently. Luca's an unbelievable person.
It's not cheap.
What's that?
Rent isn't cheap in New York.
No, and Luca's got his facility, Vigor Ground, just outside of Seattle, and of course he can't be open right now either. Washington State is another one of the places getting hit really hard with this stuff. And all these guys, they're in the same boat as a lot of the rest of us, right? Their main source of income are shut down temporarily for an unknown amount of time. That's stressful. So, but it's also worth looking back at why these people have done really well for themselves for this long and why they will survive this stuff. So hopefully you stick around and stay tuned next few weeks, and we'll get some more great episodes your guys' way. Thanks for tuning in.
Shut up and sit down.